morning. Good morning, everybody. So yesterday I gave an introduction to kind of what's on my plate for Nano and beyond, but I didn't talk about any projects that I have specifically going on. Hi, Ellie. You want to say hi? Nothing? Okay. Anyways, I brought up on Twitter my current project that I'm wrestling with. That I actually have been wrestling with that thing for a while. No, don't get in my tea. It it's based on a true story, and that's probably why I'm struggling so bad. Because, okay, so let me back up. I have 3 versions. I've started. You can tell the struggle's real. I started out with a creative nonfiction that's in first person point of view. Ellie, get out of the way. Okay, I moved away from the kid. Whew. So this book is really difficult for me. I said in my last video I didn't have a novel in me. Yeah. Okay. This book is weird for me because it's based on something I lived. From the beginning of 2018 all the way to actually just March this year, meaning my husband and she was then 6, and at the beginning I was pregnant, and then in June had a baby. So it ended up in the end being 4 of us living in one little bedroom at my husband's parents' house. So living with the in-laws. And it was an interesting time in 1,000 million ways. But particularly for me, because I was stuck at home, and actually at first I was working, pregnant, late term, and then I was stuck at home, out of work early because of a really bad depressive episode while pregnant. Because I couldn't nest, I couldn't do anything really to prepare for baby except make sure there was a place for her to sleep. What in my house wasn't my life, really, it felt like. And so I quit work early, stayed at home, had the baby, stayed at home with the baby, and so I lived a lot in isolation with an infant while my husband and daughter were gone to school and work during the day. So I wanted to write about that, how it felt to be semi-homeless. I was in a house, it wasn't mine, so I know that's better than someone who's like literally on the street, but it felt homeless to me. Everything I owned was in a storage building, and you don't necessarily want to socialize with the rest of the house when you don't really want to be there and when you have an infant. So I stayed not only cooped up in the house for a very large part of her first year, but also like confined to a single room, and I felt crazy. And so I wanted to write about the experience. And so I started out, I say so a lot, it's a very poor thing for an editor to do. I started out writing first person point of view, just creative nonfiction, and it immediately felt too real. It was so strange. And I kept thinking to myself, no one wants to read about this. Like, no one cares about my life's details. And it just felt too open. And yeah, I didn't feel comfortable with that. But then I decided, well, that doesn't mean I should just quit. So I switched to a third person point of view, and I got really excited about it. And this was actually after my family and I moved into a place to ourselves and got back on our feet and all that kind of thing. Which, by the way, the reason why we were living with the in-laws is because with the new baby coming, we were dead set on not being in a financial struggle. So we moved in with them, as my husband was only part-time at work as a teacher, and saved up money. He got full-time. We moved out. Things are going pretty swell right now. But anyways, I started hanging out in a Neil Gaiman class, which I never even finished. But it didn't inspire a lot of interesting point of views. I started thinking, well, why don't I just completely take this a different direction, write it in third person, write completely different story, but keep the themes and the struggles that were important to me that I wanted to convey from everything I went through. That went pretty well as far as like the research and the drafting, I got really excited. My main inspiration what's her name? Molly? No, I can't remember. Guys, who was the girl on Orange is the New Black? And she was, was it Polly? Was her name Polly? She was on Orange is the New Black. She's like the short, whitish hair, kind of schizophrenic. Love her. I based one of my characters off of her, which I felt like I had a sensitivity to, since I have a lot of experience with people that have mental illness like closely in my life. And I wanted to put these two characters, not with two kids, but with their first kid, in this house with Polly. And no dad, but a mom who, you know, whose whole entire life is all about Polly. And the wife that is pregnant and about to have the baby kind of feels insane living with this character. And the husband's really stuck in the middle because he's trying to, you know, argue for his family, but also, you know, take care of his family and be considerate of what his wife needs. I don't know why it just stopped appealing to me. And honestly, as much as I edit genre fiction, like, well, and this one would have been literary, so that doesn't even apply. But as much as I edit like third person fiction novels, I just hated it, like writing it. Like I can't explain it. It's just not my style. It doesn't, no matter how literary I make it, it still feels kind of amateur, and not in the writing style. I mean, it feels amateur for the story. It feels like it's an amateur approach to the story. The writing was fine. I don't know how many of you will actually understand what I'm saying, because I'm not always the best at communicating what's in my brain. But that didn't feel like it was obscure enough and artistic enough. So I went a completely different direction. Oh, my tea is really hot. I gotta set it down somewhere. So I went a completely different direction and decided to maybe start writing this thing in verse. Because poetry is kind of more my wheelhouse. Something where I can use, just totally take the language in a weird place that doesn't make any sense and doesn't follow any rules. And I can say things very subtly, but with a lot of power. That's my thing. So I have tried that briefly. I'm still stuck. And I think the only reason for that is because, you know, I'm not sure. I wish I could put words to it, but it's really more of just, I like shorter fiction. I don't like committing to something so big. And I think if I convinced myself I'm going to write this one little piece, like treat each chapter as something short and total and complete in itself, then maybe if I kept doing that over and over again, I would eventually have a book. Maybe. I don't know. Someone was asking me about the 3 different ways I have started the book, and it just struck me how they're so drastically different. And a lot of people that I see talking about how they've started over or they're contemplating changing something in their story to this or that. It's always really simple, like changing maybe the voice or taking away, like going from multi-POV to just one, and or going from first to third or something like that. And mine reads like 3 completely different books, like completely different styles, completely different mode of thinking. And I guess I'm just a sucker for the pain, because I don't like doing something halfway. If the story's not working, I'm going to try something completely different. And I think that's one of the things I do as an editor, is I try to push people to make like a serious change, because I can't tell you how many times I've worked on a story and I suggest a change, and like it's always a tweak. Always a tweak. The first instinct of the author is just to tweak. You know, you don't want to get rid of everything you spent all that time writing. And it's a real struggle for a lot of people. And for me, I just dive right in. I love it. If I'm not making the hard change from the get-go, I'm just wasting time. So that's where I am with that story, wondering what to do so I'm not wasting time. And then I don't know where I'll end up. And in the meantime, I'm writing like a bazillion other things that are all short, mostly poetry. I'm struggling to figure out if I should just completely change my major to poetry and not fiction. Like, I love poetry, but I feel like I love poetry as a hobby. I like it as self-expression. I don't think I would want to be a professional poet. And considering I'm not just doing this for my own writing career, I'm doing this to enter a job in publishing, I probably should just stick with fiction because that's what I'll be doing on my job. Well, there. I just solved that problem. Anyways, that is my NaNoWriMo checkup. As long and winded as it was and completely unorganized, but there you go. There's my ramblings about the inner workings of my stories. I'd like to hear about yours. Do you have any weird conflictions going on? Is conflictions a word? Do you have any weird conflicts with your project? Do you feel like maybe you should drop it even though it's day 4? Because I do that. Whatever's going on with you, just tell me about it. I'd love to hear and give my 2 cents if you would like it. So, bye. And yes, that was a Christmas tree, but don't you at me unless you are a fellow Christmas elf, okay? Okay.